Hi, and welcome to my video on inverse trig functions, and this video is on arc secant, which is the reciprocal of cos. And as in all previous videos, we have a unit circle whose radius is 1. At 0, x is 1, y is 0. At 90, x is 0, y is 1. At 180, x is negative 1, y is 0. And at 270, x is 0, y is negative 1. Cos is the x, so the cos of 0 degrees is 1, the sine of 0 degrees is 0. Cos is the x, sine is the y. So let's look at the graph of y equals secant theta. So secant is 1 over reciprocal, 1 over cos theta. So secant is undefined when cos theta equals 0. And cos theta equals 0 at 90 and the 270. So that means at 90 we have a vertical asymptote. At 270 we have a vertical asymptote. And at also start here, go to negative 90, we have a vertical asymptote. Or negative 270, which is right here, we have a vertical asymptote. So the cos graph is at 1. Cos graph is 0 degrees is 1. At 90 is a 0. And at 180 is negative 1. At 270 is 0. And at 360 all the way around is 1. So the cos graph goes like this, and we extend it over down to here, and it goes down to negative 1, back up to 0, and etc. So that's the cos graph continuing on. And now the secant graph is the reciprocal of that. So anywhere between negative 90 and 90, cos is between 0 and 1. So the reciprocal of these numbers is up here. So the reciprocal of 1 is 1. This is a half. Reciprocal is 2. And this is a negative a half. Sorry, half again. It's a 2. So the secant graph goes from 1. And because these are asymptotes, it will go on, up and up forever. So the closer you get to 90, the higher this value of y will be. And the closer we get to negative 90, the higher this value will be. And also between 90 and 270, the secant graph, this is the cos graph is negative. So the secant graph is the reciprocal. So reciprocal of negative 1 is negative 1. And the reciprocal of a negative a half will be negative 2. Negative a half is here, negative 2. So it does this. So that's the secant graph. And this continues on. So when we go over here is negative. So it goes down like this. And again over here, we would have vertical asymptote at 450. So there's the secant graph. But the secant graph, the inverse of the secant graph, I gotta be careful now. The secant graph does not pass the horizontal line test. So if I draw a line, horizontal line to this function up here or down here, it passes through more than one point. So it doesn't pass the horizontal line test. So therefore, we have to restrict it. And where they restrict it? Well, they restrict it in the same area as the cos graph. So that means they restrict it here and here. So this is the restriction in order for its inverse to be a function. So this is the restriction right here. So they restrict it from 0 to 180. which is the same restriction as in the cos, and 90 is the vertical asymptote. So your domain here, let's look at the domain. Your domain is from 0 to 180. So it's 0 less than or equal to theta less than or equal to 180. And we can't have theta cannot equal 90 because it's a vertical asymptote. And the range, which is the y values start at 1 and go up, so the y values are greater than or equal to 1 in union with the y values less than or, I said 1, I put down a 0, there's a 1, and less than or equal to negative 1. That's the y values, that's the range. Goes up from 1 and down from negative 1. And as a result, let's look at its reflection. So the vertical asymptote is at 90, so that means the domain becomes a range. So this is a 1, and this is a negative 1, and that goes from 0 to 180, so 0 is here, and 180 is here. So the vertical asymptote is at 90. Now we got a horizontal asymptote at 90. Right there. And it goes from 90 to downward, so from 180 downward. So 180 is at negative 1, so this point here on the graph is, this point here is 180, comma, negative 1. So now it's got to be negative 1. So it's right here, and it's going down like this. So this point is negative 180 degrees. This point here is x is 0 degrees and y is 1. So when we do it right here, x is this point, it goes this way. So this point is reversed, so it's 0 degrees. And again, this is theta, or horizontal line, so it's y equals 90. Go along here at 90, so vertical. So this is right here, this is the vertical one at 90. So this is theta equals 90. Now this one is the y, or theta. Again, theta is, I should say y, I should say theta, because it's the same, only it's horizontal. This is vertical, this is horizontal, so that's theta is 90. This is theta is 90, but it's the y. And there's the graph of its inverse. Again, repeat, I look at this, it's from 0 to 180. It's a restriction. And it's got to be greater than 1 and less than negative 1. So keep that in mind. And let's continue now and look at the secant graph. So I have the secant graph drawn again. And again, the secant graph is reciprocal of cos, so it goes from 0 to 180, and it cannot have the 90. And we have the open brackets now. It's closed at 1 going to infinity, and in union, I got an intersection, that's a union there, that's a U for union. That should be a U, not a upside down. And it goes from closed at negative 1 going to negative infinity. So let's look at some questions. What about the secant of 45? Well, the secant of 45 is 1 over the cos of the negative 45. So the secant of negative 45 is 1 over the cos of 45. Negative 45. So negative 45 is right here. So that's the negative 45. So terminal arm goes out, hits it at the point where stops the rotation, drop a perpendicular to the x-axis, and we have 45-degree rotation, so that reference angle is 45, this angle is 45, so that's a 1, 1, root 2. X is positive, y is negative. So the secant is the hypotenuse over the adjacent. So the hypotenuse over the adjacent is the hypotenuse is root 2 over the adjacent, which is 1. And that becomes just root 2. And what about 315 degrees? So 315 degrees is all the way around to here. So this is rotating this way, 315 degrees, right to here. So that still gives us 45 degrees right here on the arc. This is the same triangle again. So the answer to the negative 45 is the same as 315. So it's a root 2 over 2. And the adjacent over root 2 over 2. Secant is the reciprocal of cos, so it's 1 over root 2, root 2 over 1. And secant is the cos is the x. So what about the arc secant of the negative? Well, if cos is negative from 180 to 90, because it's negative here. So that means that the root 2, it must be between 90 and 180, so it must be in this quadrant. And so we drop perpendicular, and because we have a root 2, it must be 45, 45. And it's negative, so let's see, this is negative 1, this is positive 1, this is root 2. So the cos of 135 is, cos is negative 1 over root 2, but secant is root 2 over negative 1. So the answer here, the angle must be 135 degrees. And as a radiant, it's pi over 445, so there's 3 45s there. But notice with these two, we had a positive, but this is a negative, so we had to go, because it's negative, we had to go to an angle between 90 and 180, which is in the second quadrant, and has root 2 is the same as these, so it must have been a 45 right triangle. And what about the secant of negative 60 degrees? So negative 60 is going down right here. Drop a terminal arm. That's a negative 60 rotation. That means the reference angle is 60. That's a 30. And this is a 90. So this is 1. This is root 3. This is 2. And x is positive. Y is negative. Hypotenuse is always positive. So the secant is a reciprocal of cos, so that's hypotenuse over adjacent in terms of the negative 60. So the reference angle is 60. So the hypotenuse is 2 over the adjacent, which is 1. So 2 over 1 is 2. And let's look at 420 degrees. So 420 is a 360. So 420, take away 360, you get 60 degrees. So 420 is 360 plus 60 more. So it starts here, goes all the way around like this. And it comes up to here, right to here. So there's the 420 rotation perpendicular to the x-axis. And because that's 60 more, this is 60. So the reference angle is 60. That's a 30. So this is a 1, this is a 2, and this is the root 3. Because opposite 30 is 1, opposite 60 is root 3, opposite the right angle is 2. And these are x is plus, y is positive. So it's hypotenuse over adjacent again, because that's a 60. Then it's its hypotenuse over adjacent, so hypotenuse is 2 over the adjacent, which is 1, so we get a 2. But what about the arc secant of 2? Well, let's look back at where we restricted. 2 is right here. So that means the angle must be between 0 and 90. And between 0 and 90, that means the angle must be in the first quadrant. So this angle must be 60. Even though these angles gave us a 2, but the restriction on secant has to be between 0 and 180, positive for 0 to 90, negative from 90 to 180. And 60 is a pi divided by 3. 60 multiplied by pi over 180. And 60 once, 63. So pi over 3 if you want a radian. What about the arc secant of negative 1? Well, here's the restriction. It's from 0 to 180. Negative 1 is a 180. And 180 is, in terms of, it's 180 degrees when radians is a pi. And what about the secant, the arc secant of 2 over 3, 2 root 3 over 3? Well, 2 root 3 over 3, 2 root 3 over 3, we have to look at the reciprocal. So the reciprocal is 3 over 2 root 3. Rationalize, we multiply the bottom and the top by root 3. That gives us 3 root 3. Root 3 times root 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And the 3's cancel, so we get root 3 over 2. And root 3 over 2 is the 30, 60, 90 right triangle. But the arc secant, this is positive. So because it's positive, it has to be between 0 and 90. That means it must be in the first quadrant. So the rotation of this angle is here, and perpendicular to the x-axis. And that means that this is cos. So cos is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So the adjacent is root 3, and the hypotenuse is 2. That means that that's a 1. So that means that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So because that's a 1, this is a 30-degree angle. Because that's a root 3, that's a 60-degree angle. And that means that this angle rotating here must be 30 degrees. The cos of 30 is root 3 over 2. The secant of 30 is 2 over root 3, which gives you this number. So you got a 30-degree angle, and 30-degree angle is 180 divided by 6. Let's convert. 30 multiplied by pi over 180. 30 once, 36. So 30 degrees is pi over 6. So that's a review going over the arc secant graph and its restrictions. Again, remind you that secant and cos are reciprocals. So cos is from 0 to 180. So secant is from 0 to 180. Positive from 0 to 90. Negative from 90 to 180. So, if you like my video, click the like button, click the subscribe button if you wish. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained, which is just one word. Thank you for viewing my video. Hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.